hang on, look, it's hang on, just found it.
Are we getting an
Oh,
exclusive?
I won't.
Open those
Oh
pages,
yeah, it's
Glenn. Open those
it's
pages.
years old now. It's years old.
Joining us on Coaster Conversations today is Glenn Robertson, also known as the Notable Stranger, composer of many of the theme park soundtracks we all know and love, but most importantly, the composer of the soundtrack for the soon-to-reopen Valhalla ride at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Thanks for joining me today, Glenn. How are you? And welcome to Coaster Conversations.
I'm fine, Sean. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all, sir. So before we jump into chatting about all things Valhalla, I'd love to ask you what your own personal favorite styles of music are and what first inspired you to become a composer.
Very electronic, as you can probably see. So it
Not at
was
all.
late 70s. So yeah, mid early late 70s electronic music, Jean-Michel Jarre, Tangerine Dream, Kraftwerk, Vangelis, all that kind of thing. It just struck a chord with me quite literally, and yeah, it's I once heard a piece of music and thought that's what I want to do. I didn't have any kind of I had keyboard lessons when I was a kid. It wasn't really even piano. It was just a guy came to the house and my little you like Bon Tempi thing. It would teach you how to play that, but it was always Beatles songs and things like that. And so I got the very basics, and then yeah, I got rid of my Bon Tempi and taught my mum and dad into getting me a second-hand Yamaha DX27, which is the most impenetrable synthesizer in the world anyway. And so for a young child, it was just completely impenetrable. But I stuck with it, and yeah, it kind of grew from there, really.
Visiting a theme park and just walking through and hearing your kind of work play out loud in an area, adding atmosphere and immersion for people to experience, that must be quite an emotional experience, right? I mean, how do these kind of experience kind of make you feel every time you go to a park?
It is cool, actually. Yeah, I never thought it was just another job. I've been doing this since I was 16, so it was merely because I knew Amanda, who owns a park, and they were having a new ride, and she said, "Can you do the music?" And then I was speaking to other people, and they said, "Oh, well, you need like cue music and all that," because I'd just done a whatever it was, 12-minute piece of music and to be split up. So then I did the ambient stuff, which I is actually in Icon is my favorite piece of music is the ambient stuff when you're in the queue line and stuff like that. So yeah, when you're walking around the park, especially around Icon, you got it banging out quite loud, and it every time. Yeah, it doesn't get boring. And then you go around the big one, and you can hear it there, and it is a weird feeling.
Yeah, I mean, as funny you just mentioned that, because Icon is also my personal favorite UK theme park soundtrack of all time. And I
Yeah.
want to settle the debate once and for all, because every time we're standing in the queue line, we hear a little bit of a crackle, a little bit of a pop, and we're like, is that a little bit of 13 at Alton Towers there I could hear?
Oh, I don't know. I've never heard 13 at Alton Towers, so I don't know. If it is, it's purely coincidental.
There we go.
I can't. Last time I went to Alton Towers was, oh my God, 20 odd years ago. For people who don't know, I live in southern Germany, so I don't get to go to to UK parks very often. So I go to the Pleasure Beach because I do the music for Ice and just and for Valhalla and things like that. But I don't get a chance to visit other parks in the UK.
Now, with you mentioning Valhalla there, it has been a project that's been in the works now for quite some time. When were you first approached to compose the new soundtrack, and what's the usual process that happens when the parks reach out to you to create a piece of music for the ride?
Oh my God, I can't actually remember how long ago. It was pre-COVID, I know that.
Yeah.
It's I genuinely can't remember. It was probably just after it would have closed to the public. It was yeah, it would have been around then. So it started out as just a something to play in the station, and then as the plans for the ride evolved into much more of an immersive thing, then the score expanded with it. So you get the score in the station, the main music bit, and then as you go through the different zones, some parts of it have music, some parts are just ambiences with effects and stuff like that. But there's audio all the way around the ride now, yeah, and it's different audio in different sections, and hopefully it tells an audio story as well as the experience story of being on the ride.
Yeah, so when Pleasure Beach, for example, when they first came to you, how do they go about proposing the project to you? Do they give you like a brief list of what they want the ride to be about, and then you tailor it based off that? Do they send you images? How does that process work?
If we take Valhalla and Icon as two separate things, Icon was very much Amanda phoned me up and she gave me this 5-10 minute speech of what she envisaged the ride to be and the kind of backstory to it and things like that. And so I just made loads of notes and wrote it off that really. Um, because there was no real artwork or anything at that point. So it was just what she kind of portrayed to me. With Valhalla, it's different, as in Adam, who's like the creative lead for it, Adam Slevin. He did a brilliant, absolutely brilliant. If anybody's ever doing music, you need him to draw this. But there's a book somewhere around here still. It's been folded and used and everything, but it was images and descriptions of each section of the ride, what it was going to be. Not so much computer rendered, it might have just been a stock picture of a bit of rusty metal or something like that. But it kind of gives it that how it's going to look, and so it was absolutely invaluable for me because you could literally just go page by page and going through it. And so me and Adam had a briefest of conversations about the music, and I think we were both on the same page from the start. So it's not it's not Viking music as in lutes and medieval instruments, which was my fear that he wanted to start with, because he can't really go with little uh, uh, terrible little wind instruments and things like that. So it was an alternative kind of a just to the side alternative universe of your traditional Viking story. So they might have evolved at a different speed, and they have metal and things like that, rather than it being very medieval and historically accurate. So as soon as we came to the idea and the sound of how what the style should be, then it kind of that was the end of the creative conversation, because we both knew what we were talking about and we were both on the same page. So off I went.
Plastic. And if that book goes missing, I hold my hands up. I have no responsibility. I'm here in the UK. I cannot possibly steal that book.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be. Hang on, there it is. Hang on, just found it.
I'm getting an exclusive.
I won't.
Open those.
Oh yeah,
open those pages.
It's years old now. It's years old now, but yeah, it's a. This is about the fourth version I've got of printing it off, because I just keep. It's got many. There's about four versions with different notes scribbled all over it and everything else. So but it's absolutely the most invaluable thing I've ever had. It's been a brilliant thing to just keep referencing.
So when you scroll through those pages and when you put the final piece together, how would you describe the new Valhalla soundtrack in just one sentence?
Oh, epic! It's definitely epic, but it has sad parts as well and dramatic parts. But yeah, there's much more of a mournful feel to it than if Icon is triumphant and aggressive. Valhalla still has a certain amount of harshness and aggression, but there's a mournfulness as well. It's kind of a melancholy feel to it. It kind of builds, and yeah, there's a slower build to it than probably Icon had. But I mean, yeah, it's got real choir in it, and so they absolutely screamed the place down when we were recording it, and I got lots of so they recorded the main music part as well, but then like a, we had a bit of time left, so we I got the men to just do like cluster oohs and and just kind of and elongated them out. So it just adds to the atmosphere when you're in the ride, and it's kind of tonal rather than just groans and stuff. It's tonal, so it's in the music of that atmosphere. So it might just sound like atmosphere, but it's still music in the same key and the same chord or whatever that the music carries on doing.
All right, fantastic. It may be the longest sentence I've ever heard in my life, Glenn, but it's much
Oh yeah,
appreciated.
that was one sentence. Yeah, all right, sorry. You're the first person to ask me about it, so you're getting years worth of.
Yeah, yeah, I
This is what I wanted
appreciate
it
it.
to be.
I appreciate it. Thank you ever so much. So the thing is, with a ride like Valhalla, it's been open obviously since the year 2000, and Song of the Elders on repeat is certainly something that in people's minds is kind of reminiscent of that old reiteration of the ride. Was there kind of a pressure on you as a composer to do this new reincarnation justice?
Uh, oh, absolutely to do it justice. Yeah. Uh, I think it was decided quite on early on that it wasn't fit for purpose anymore. Um, and because there's more of a story element to the ride now, it really didn't fit or didn't. Yeah, it would have stuck out like a sore thumb that we're just copying and pasting this bit in just for the sake of it, really. So but yeah, I am very much aware, thanks to Twitter, of how much the old song is revered, but fair things move on. Get over it. There's your clip.
That's the Twitter. That's the Twitter tweet within the right amount of characters there as well. Just get over
Yeah.
it. I like it. So when it comes to Foley stages for sound effects, I've seen all sorts of kind of weird and wonderful things that people have used to create sound effects for mixes. Could you name some of the weirdest things that have gone in to create this new Valhalla mix at all?
Oh yeah. Oh my. I spent the first few months or weeks just hitting banging and sawing away at things to make especially I wanted the war horn to sound epic, and there are probably 8 elements, different sounds that go into the war horn, and then it's fed through that white thing there, which gives it a distortion and everything else. And so I mean, I don't really want to say what's in the war horn because it's. I think it's a clever trick, so I'm not saying what's in it, but yeah, there's about eight, probably eight, probably even more elements that go into the war horn to give it that. There's a I wanted it to sound like you would hear it for miles, and it would be the most terrifying noise as Vikings approached your village or whatever. As the Viking army approached you, this noise would come from miles away and bring terror to you before they even arrived. Um, but yeah, all the noises and effects in Valhalla are custom made. So I didn't want to just go to the Sony sound effects library and get dripping water noise, whatever, and just copy and paste it on. So yeah, the dripping water is made with that. I even did a if you look at if you're very interested, there's a I did a hashtag. This is the sound of V. And if you do that as a hashtag, I did little tweets, and I think they're on what's the other one, TikTok and Instagram, of how I was doing different sound effects and stuff like that. So there's one of me getting one of the synths to make the sound of water drops and things like that. And then I just record them into the computer, and some of them you mess around with. I used for nerds. I I used quite a lot of hardware, ye olde hardware samplers, recording it into them and then doing different things with it. Just A, because I could, and B, because it gives it. I wanted Valhalla to have its own sound universe, so to speak. So everything in that universe, especially all the sound effects and voices and stuff, go through one very old reverb unit. So they all kind of sound like they're coming from the same place rather than having 15 different reverbs and all very pristine and crystal and everything else. They go through this very, very old plate reverb. And so it gives it I hate to say the word warm sound because that's an overused cliche, but it gives it a sound like everything's coming from the same place. And so yeah, I have a bow. I have a collect. Oh, what all this? See, now you're getting all the nerdy stuff. I've got a collection of these things. I've got different beaters for different things, and you whack them. And I was whacking my flight cases, and
Sounds like you've got
um,
your own armory there, Glenn.
yeah, I know. Yeah. Uh, I went, yeah, I just went to the music shop one day and just bought anything that was percussive or you could whack or whatever, and then just messed around with them. I've got pieces of metal that show us play, if you get a saw and then you put it between your legs and you bend the piece of the saw end so it's
Yeah.
rigid. You can't, and you get like a violin bow or something, it will make a weird noise.
I'm going to have to
And
get a health
so
and safety disclaimer now at the bottom.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Get a blunt saw if there is such a thing. But if you do it and you do it very, very, very slowly, then you drop the pitch down in a ye olde sampler. It gives it this kind of atmosphere. It's a weird atmosphere, and so yeah, it was a lot of experimentation. And I have probably I have hours and hours of recordings on my computer of just various things that you try and see if it works, and then you kind of catalog it, and yeah. So the first few weeks, probably very little music was written, but I wanted the sound first and then the music on top.
Yeah. With how much the project has changed over the last few years, have you had to keep being given feedback from Amanda or the team as and when different bits of the rides have been changing throughout this refurbishment project for you to tweak certain bits, or is that sort of a solid thing that you do from the start and then they just apply to it and work with the soundtrack? How does that process work?
It's I mean, Adam's the one who's kind of I mean, Amanda is ultimately decision maker, but Adam's been the one who I've worked with, and he would say now and again, "Oh, hang on, might change, this might move here, and this might move there." But I mean, nothing major. So it's kind of been set in stone from the beginning, really. Just trying to think. Yeah, nothing as because the ride is kind of there anyway. You can't really move giant sections, you can't move the end to the start or whatever.
Mm.
So it's, I mean, there's still lots of changes and surprises in it, but it's kind of been a constant all the way through. So I mean, that's brilliant for me that I
Yeah.
didn't have to start moving around because because you get the first um, I don't know whatever it is. 15, 20 minutes, which is your station and everything else. And then when it moves into the zones, I kind of designed it so you can press play at the start and play it all the way through, including the zones, get right through to the finale as one piece of music. I mean, I may be, I may be optimistic that it sounds like a coherent piece of music all the way through because I've heard it so many times that to me it does sound like a coherent piece of music. So, but it's up to everybody else to decide. I mean, it's not been written for you to listen to it all the way through. It's a piece of music that's serving a function, and those bits have been chopped up and the zone bits will have been chopped up and looped and separated and everything else. So it's not some so on the score, one section might only be 20 or 30 seconds long, but in the ride, it's looped for 4 or 5 minutes just so you can't, it sounds like a constant thing that's going on. So, but you can't just do that as part of the score because that would be quite boring. So you've got to condense it and everything else to make it still kind of tell an audio story.
I'm very much looking forward to hearing the full version, potentially on Friday if this technical rehearsal does go ahead. But with you being the man in the know, what would you say to guests ahead of its opening? What can they expect other than this wonderful, dominant, adventure-led soundtrack?
You will still get wet, which is what which is the one thing that everybody keeps asking, which is strange. It's not my first thing of being excited about a ride is how wet you'll get, but it's much more of a story, and
Yeah,
it's a good. You kind of guided through the ride now, rather than it's much more of a direct interaction with the people on the boat.
yeah.
I'm not trying to watch my words, but at the same time, I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not.
Perfectly
So
understand.
I don't know what's. I mean, that first loop is going to be a hell of a shock for most people, but
Without those
um,
seatbelts as well.
no, well. They think they've designed it so the G force will just pin you to your seat. So,
That's where all the money went.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what's taking time. These things are. If it's going to be unique like that, it's not going to do it in five. We're not going to do it in 5 weeks. It takes time.
So, okay, aside from that, then,
And
so you don't put your foot in your mouth with any spoilers, are there projects that you're currently working on that you can tell us about, or is everything very hush hush until certain rides are announced?
Ride music accounts for Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and that's about it. So I do I do other music stuff. So, but the ride music is literally Pleasure Beach, and that's it. Nobody else asks, nobody else gets. So it's a nice distraction every now and again. It's a bit of a different thing than, well, I mean, probably touching 34, probably touching 40 odd minutes of doing something completely different, as indeed Icon was. It's quite nice to just do something, and as long as you kind of, I think I'm kind of trusted that I'll do it, so I'm kind of left alone to do it, and yeah, it's a nice distraction. It's something that you can, especially with Valhalla, because it's been sadly delayed so much. You can keep going back, doing other work, and then coming back to it, and so it's not been a continual thing. So it's nice to just come back to it, and almost sometimes you've forgotten what you've done. You have to listen to it through and think, oh yeah, it's quite good. This you don't have that kind of it's work kind of thing. But yeah, I'm very busy. Yeah, I've got Hot Ice to finish, which is more or less finished. Well, I've just got to sort out a singer, and then they are finished for this year, and then it's back to normal music work.
Fantastic, brilliant. Thank you for sharing. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to speak to me, Glenn. I mean, it's been a real pleasure. I appreciate all the work that you do. I think music is one of them things. It doesn't matter if it's a theme park or if it's just you listening at home. It's something that can change your mood within the first beat. It's something that can be uplifting. It's something that can be inspirational. It's something that can affect many people in many different ways. And one of my personal favorites of all time is the Icon soundtrack. So it's an honor for me to speak to you today. And I just wanted to wish you all the best for future projects. Can't wait to see Valhalla. I won't be putting my fingers in my ears. I'll be fully enjoying this wet experience that you've so described. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show and speaking to me on Coaster Conversations today.
Yeah, pleasure, Sean. I've really enjoyed it.